over. Is
Hello,
that beer or is that a mug?
everyone. We have joined
Hi.
the beer controversy. Do you mean the OJ? Do you mean the beer on the right? Yeah, that's the only beer I see.
Yeah.
You know what? I think it's butterbeer. That's why. That's why it looks like that.
Wait, what's butterbeer?
Butterbeer is it's a drink from Harry Potter. You get it from the Three Broomsticks, and I actually have never tasted butterbeer.
Okay.
But it's very foamy. It's super foamy. You can get it at Harry Potter World, I believe, in LA, or was it London? I don't remember which one. And I imagine that's what it looked like. What's wrong with the beer?
No. I feel like the problem is that if there's foam or whatever stuff, it should not have a very round edge on the top. And that's what it has. It has a very round edge on the top, which is why I thought it's actually more a mug that has, like, you know, the transition of white to brown, rather than it being beer or whatever drink it can be. Because I don't think the glass is transparent. I think it's this color.
Right. It's just your, yeah. Wait, so what's wrong with it again?
Oh, like if it was beer, then it looks very off. But I don't think it was beer. The assumption was that it was beer in those glass, but I think it's actually not beer.
Doesn't make sense. It has to be beer. Artists. Such picky people.
But it makes no sense for it to be beer because there's no foam. There's no foam, there's no bubbles. And the top edge shouldn't be, like, fully just, like, round, you know?
There's
a very
an elf
clear-cut edge.
playing a flute next to a wizard. The beer in this world can
Does not
be
have
allowed
foam.
to not have foam. Yes.
I refuse.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining in our super world-shattering discussion on what beer should or should not look like.
It makes sense if you accept that as badly drawn.
Frosted mugs of apple juice. That does sound good, although I am craving something very hot because it's super cold here.
I already made something very hot.
That's okay. I'll make do with room temperature water. That reminds me of how in fantasy world, so again, I'm just going back to Game of Thrones, people just have issues with the weirdest things. Like, yes, it is based on medieval, the medieval era, but like people, you know, some people have issues with women being in power and stuff. It's like, it doesn't make sense back in those days. Like, it would never happen. It's the patriarchy. And then it's like, but there are also like dragons the size of mountains.
Did you want to do a proper introduction so I can just edit them?
Let me just...
Okay.
That means we have to say goodbye to this lovely tavern warm music. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Oshinoko Season 2, Episode 3, The Watch Party, where we discuss beer foam. And Schyph would like to discuss something important as well. Maybe not as important as beer foam, but I think we wanted to read some comments that we got. Some interesting comments from the first episode, I think.
One of them was from TF Shaman, and they said, as for the Promised Neverland, I have to agree that the internal monologues are difficult to adapt and were not handled in the best way. However, I personally prefer the anime adaptation of the season 1 in this case because of the things it does incredibly well, which are cinematography and soundscape. And we kind of talked about that last week as well, right? Before the reaction episode, we talked about how sound makes a big difference in terms of, like, if you're transitioning from, for example, a book or a novel or manga to something that's like a live medium, so like anime or live action. And so TF Sharman continues saying that the soundtrack is the obvious thing. It does its job well, but it's not something the other anime adaptation lack. However, the sound design is absolutely amazing. There are many long scenes where both the soundtrack and the dialogue are completely absent, and all you can hear is, for example, the sound of water, footsteps, or breathing. It adds so much emotional intensity and atmosphere to those scenes. I can't think of any other anime that handles the soundscape as well as A Promised Neverland Season 1, and it's something I really missed while reading the manga. Yeah.
Sound design, music. I told you music's the most important thing. And then becomes oxygen, and then comes water, and then comes suisei.
But don't you need oxygen or air for sound to travel? So technically...
Ain't nobody need
you can't...
oxygen or space
but
for sound to travel. But not in my world.
Yeah, but if you're in... so you also live in a fantasy world. Because you can't have sound in outer space. Because technically you need molecules to vibrate for sound to travel. Right? Right? Isn't that science? That's how science works.
Let's talk about Suisei. Suisei is not low on the list.
You didn't mention her, so...
She's number 4. It was music, oxygen, water, Suisei. It's alright. She doesn't need to be on my number 1 list. She has so many people for whom prioritize her, so it's okay.
So I'm gonna
Suisei will
keep
survive.
A Suisei counter. Suisei counter in our anime watch along.
This is the one stream where I need to be free from the Suisei counter, please.
But going back to that comment, I think I probably need to rewatch the anime. To be fair, I did drop it quite early when I was like kind of disappointed. So if I go into it from this perspective, being like, okay, I need to learn to appreciate the difference, right? So I think that's something that most people who read the source material or know the source material kind of go in with an expectation and find it hard to appreciate the things that the medium does different. And I think I unfortunately fell into the hole where I go, but where's the internal monologue? That's the best part. So I did not learn to appreciate the difference. So I need to go back and rewatch the series and hopefully can be able to pick up the subtle things that they've done to make sure that they present it in the medium that they do well in.
Yeah, it's about mindset sometimes and just adjusting expectations. Okay, yeah, that's a good different perspective. This was on the second ep. Annie Nikaido always gets some really good long ones from them. This is about staff harassment. On staff harassment, so this was, of course, because last ep, it was the whole thing about how the script writer was kind of shat on for a job that wasn't really his fault. He did his best. On staff harassment, it's one thing I could never wrap my head around. Rather, I'd understand if it was directed at the writer, even if I do not agree with it. But even in my childhood, I could not comprehend why people harass actors. Oh, I think this was in response to when we were talking about how the Game of Thrones actors had personal abuse hurled at them after the end of the show, which was ridiculous. Yeah. It's so absurd to me that people would be mad at an actor because they played a character they disliked. Did you not mention Joffrey also had a lot of hate directed at him, the actor for Joffrey?
We didn't mention it, but I thought about it as well. But this was prior to the ending of the because Joffrey, spoilers, passed away in earlier seasons, but it's so amazing that he played that character so convincingly that people hated his guts. But there should still be a line where you draw and go, that's an actor. That's not the character that he's playing. You shouldn't be hating him because he played this character so well that you hate his guts. He's just an actor.
Some people do have trouble drawing that line because they live in a fantasy world, which I would know nothing about. Anyway, I will keep reading this.
Says the person that says sound can exist without air or space.
My fantasy world is healthy and wholesome and kind. Anyway, I'm going to keep reading. While it's probably more of an emotional response rather than a rational one, I simply don't get how one reaches that point. I understand why it happened early in history because of a lack of familiarity with the concept of an actor. Interesting. As well as in recent years, since so many young children have early access to the internet. But I find it absolutely mind-boggling that this has always been a consistent phenomenon. I still remember the ReZero incident where a voice actress caught a bunch of hate because of plot developments that did not even involve her character directly, but other characters related to hers. I have to admit, I'm in the dark about the ReZero incident. And hello, Leopold. Still having pre-show chat. But yeah, does anyone know what the ReZero incident is about?
I also don't know what the ReZero incident, so someone else will have to.
I mean, I guess they kind of summarized it. Just a voice actor copped a bunch of hate for character developments that weren't even about her own character, which is weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's outside of their control.
I know, when people have feelings, things can get a little bit explosive. I did want to, should I have a little spiel about moral rights of an author? Since that was related to last week's. I'm sure it will be related this episode as well, because it seems like we're still going to be focusing on the very disgruntled manga author who threatened to pull rights to the whole show.
Yeah.
But I did do a tiny bit of digging into the laws in Japan around what it means to protect an author's moral rights. Not like PhD level research, but oh, you guys see my notes?
You wrote notes?
Yeah, I write notes. Wait, how do I? Fine. I'll just keep my notes to myself.
No. We want to read the notes. Show us the notes.
Oh, I also wrote some notes about, like, the theatre.
Do you need to make it smaller so it doesn't cover your face?
No. Oh. All right. Well, since we don't have the foghorn, this is it. You're getting like notes covering my face. This is the scuff. What was I going to say about theatre? I was going to say, because we're going to the theatre this episode, and I was thinking, because again, I was still thinking about how Aqua was really dismissive about theatre, and I was actually kind of offended as well, because I love theatre. I mean, I haven't been to a theatre show where they speak. I'm more of like a, a Broadway kind of person. Look.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you mean like the mute.
The mute? Wait,
what? Because you said where they... You haven't been to one where they speak, so I was like...
Oh, no. I would love to go to one where no one speaks on the stage. But I was more thinking... Dialogue. Yeah, I am more a Broadway person. I'm not so much like a spoken line kind of person. But I was thinking we're so... What did I say? We're so spoiled nowadays for the level of production quality that we get for theatre stage plays because of the technology that, is in use. These multi-million dollar sound systems and just screen effects. Whereas I was thinking back in my day, back in the Elizabethan era, because obviously I'm 600 years old, 500 to 600 years old. All they literally had, all of the backdrops were just the same for the entire duration of a theatre stage play. They'd rely a lot more on the actor themselves and props and animal blood, just to make it smell like you were in the setting. And also sound effects as well, really shit back then. I found if you want to have thunder claps, they have this really, really long like a tunnel, or they call it a trough thing, and they just roll a big cannonball down and that's your thunder. So I'm like, we're actually really, really spoiled in terms of the level of production quality and how immersed you can be into theatre stage play. So I'm really looking forward to how they show that in the next episode. But yeah, that was way too long of a rant. This is the stuff I had to. I'll just summarize this really quickly. So, because last time I remember when the author was threatening to pull her permission and didn't really care about like the damages that they would have to pay, I was like, I wonder if there's a difference between how much Japanese original authors are protected versus like Western, or I kind of looked at Japan versus the US in terms of how much legal protection is afforded to authors and their creative works. And it's actually really interesting to me, like a legal nerd, because so when we think about moral rights for authors, it's like you divide it into economic rights, which is like rights to distribution and rights to like distribution, licensing, all of that boring stuff. And then the second kind of rights, which is what Japan is all about, or more about than the US, it turns out, is things like protecting the integrity of the work and the protecting the reputation and the honor of the original author. So moral rights, they're not things that you can actually sign away in a contract. You can sign away your right to exercise your moral rights, which is slightly different. They're just kind of like inalienable rights, like human rights for an author. And it was really interesting to find that in the US, they're much less about those kinds of inalienable rights and more about, are your rights protected in a contract? Which obviously it depends, like how much you're protected depends on the integrity of your contract as opposed to your inalienable rights as an author. So that's why in Japan, I was like, maybe that's why Japanese authors have a bit more or even significantly more say in how much an adaptation has to stick to the original creative intent, and how much they have to seek the author's permission. Because if your contract's shit, like, you know, if you're working in America and your contract's shit and you actually have signed away all of these rights, which are signable, awayable, that's terrible term, but you know what I mean. Then you have no recourse when they change your characters or change the intent of your script or your story. So I thought it was really interesting. There's like a reason, there's a difference between those two countries. And I looked up this case, like it's all very airy-fairy, but an actual case in 1993 in Japan. That's why you can get these kinds of cases where authors can sue the creators of any adaptation if they alter a script or a story so much that it is held to be sort of like not faithful to the author's creative intent. And there was an example of the original story was about a woman who's married to an office guy. It's a critique of how the wives of office workers are treated. And it's all about her independence and how she breaks free of society's constraints on women. But the adaptation changed it so that she actually accepts her husband's sacrifices and is like, I've been very selfish. I've been a very selfish wife. And I accept that, you know, a man has a job and I as a wife have to support you. So that it was obviously a huge change that the author disagreed with, because the author themselves was a strong women's rights activist. And so the court held that the degree of change was so egregious that it damaged her reputation as a women's rights activist and also damaged the integrity of her original work, which was all about women's empowerment and independence and all that. So it was really interesting Whereas there's much less scope for protecting that kind of integrity of a work in the US, at least. Yeah. So that's my legal dive into why maybe in Oshinoko, the manga author has such pull, you know, because there is slight differences between the two legal systems. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
That's my rant. Surprised at...
You have notes. I'm still shocked.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's no way I was going to, like...
Good work.
Yeah, no, it's my law student bad habits. Okay, I think we're ready to go. I'm actually surprised that there's still people here after that boring legalese. Tommy, I'm still lukewarm on theatre in general. You're dead to me, Tommy. No, it's fine.
Wait. I see. I remember hearing from someone that you fell asleep in something. I wonder what that was. I need to bring up receipts.
No one needs to know about that. Okay, let's watch episode 3. Woohoo! I've never fallen asleep in a theatre play before. Never. Okay, everyone has their own copy. Ready to go. We'll do the countdown. 3, 2, 1, play.
What was that about sleep? RC may have fallen asleep
while
watching something.
Don't interrupt the OP. The disrespect talking during the OP.
Wow. The disrespect of falling asleep in theatre.
Those 3 hands. Does that still bother you?
It still bothers me. It's 3 hands. Why? So we need to do like a frame by frame someday.
Yes, we did mention that possibility.
Or I should listen to the music more. Because I'm still like, the visuals are so cool.
Akana is so cool.
No. Kana's best girl. Fight me.
In-demand actress. Getting all that tea now.
Still confident?
Oh man, this chaotic orchestral music.
Went on a date.
Yay!
Is that Prince of Tennis parody?
Prince of Tennis?
Oh, I know it's table tennis.
Aqua's life is about to change. Oh, I don't really like 4D. The glorification of ping pong.
Yeah,
Only in Asia.
only in anime.
Rotating stages.
He's humbling himself.
Mm.
I wonder how expensive it is.
To put on a show that involves that kind of
Yeah,
tech.
yeah. And you need the venue for it as well.
They're very rare. Like, I've never been to one of those.
Neither.
This guy just does everything.
How old is he?
Ooh. Mm. Oh. OJ just picking apart every single drink that goes up on screen.
What we said last week. Just put them in the room.
Not just rocking up at her place.
Maybe they just kept contact. I mean, they did save her show, kind of.
She hates him, right?
Yeah.
It's 18, right? Japan drinking age. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I mean, she's a writer. Not surprised.
No, even worse, a manga artist.
20. He's so clear-sighted sometimes, it's quite scary.
Hmm. I mean, he does have some memories of being, a doctor.
True.
Oh my god, this does happen a lot.
The worst job. Hmm. Ooh, that is not easy to hear.
Mm.
It's one of those situations where they both have points.
Mm. I feel like this is referencing the early conversation about like you talk to the same, people in the same job, and it sounds like you're bragging.
Mm-hmm. But she's so good, even though it's so hard.
Mm.
I love this music.
Mm.
It's so sad, but it's also like, I want the best for her, even though I'm suffering and in pain.
What is it?
Wait, did she read it first? She's not going to read it first. She's not going to scan it.
Oh no.
Ooh. Damn. She's an island.
Oof.
She's a walking corpse.
Mm.
Must have a really strong smell of like 10-day-old noodles.
It's like perfectionist.
A bit. I was going to say quotes. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh, is she gonna stab her with that pen? Oh god. Okay, no, it's fine. Like Western dueling soundtrack.
Preparing. This is great.
Breaker, breaker. But I'm right about this thing. Hmm. I'm glad they have each other.
Yeah. Like relentless. Aww.
She's so lucky to have
Yeah.
that mentor.
The butthurt fan. Aww.
Yeah, real best girl.
Mm.
Hey, character development.
Yeah.
Rewriting. Latty, respect for Sweet Today's author for not being an I did it to the kids should have to build character. Instead being, sorry, I subjected you to that. We are changing it. Yeah. What's the Sweet Today author's name?
Good question. I never
Have they said it yet? Or is it's always just Sweet Today's author or the mentor or
I'm sure they mentioned it and we just didn't commit it to memory.
yeah.
I could just recycled Akane's plan.
Man, I loved that battle of words. That was so well done. They were both coming at each other, but out of a place of love. And it was just so bizarre.
I thought what was nice is that, you know how sometimes you watch shows and it's just like you have like a clear who is right, who is wrong. Oh, someone misunderstood, they're obviously wrong. But in this case, it's kind of like they both have very, very valid points.
Yep.
Just different sides.
Yep. So, is it Abiko? She was saying you need to be more assertive with your work. You don't have to be a pushover. Or I don't think she was a pushover. It was more maybe she just didn't assert her vision as strongly as she maybe could have. And the mentor admitted that as much. And Abiko was being criticized for cutting everyone off, basically, making it impossible to work with her and treating everyone around her like trash and ultimately ruining her own career, like in the long term, you know, because obviously this life where she sleeps 2 hours a day and lives on instant noodles 3 meals a day and doesn't clean her house and is like a walking corpse will kill her.
It's probably 1 meal a day.
Literally kill. Oh, or no meals. Maybe time just doesn't mean anything for her anymore.
Issue is that she makes a good point about training someone, right? It takes time to train someone, and when you're in a high stress, time sensitive environment, you don't have time to train someone who is not at the level that you want them to be. And I find that it's very common in healthcare, especially like, you know, nurses, doctors. Imagine being in an emergency. It's just like patients keep rolling in and you're just like, I don't have time to go step by step. You need to do this, this, and this. And then look over your shoulder to be like, are you doing everything correct so that the patient is alive, right? You don't have the time because you probably have like another 5 patients lining up. In manga situations, like, I have so many pages I need to do. I don't have time to be able to tell you this is what you need to do to improve. So I also understand her perspective being like, I just need someone who's competent at my level. But the problem is that if she's like a genius artist, no one is at their level. And if they are, they will be doing their own work.
True.
Or they have a different sense of vision where, because if they're also a genius level, they have their own vision and will do things their own way because they also feel like, well, I'm really good at what I do. If you don't agree, that's your problem. And then they'll just clash. Didn't she also say that there was a big shot and then it didn't, she was kind of like disappointed or didn't agree with him or something. I need to go back to that dialogue to see what she said, but I think she mentioned that too. And so it's just like, well, no one will work at her level
Except herself.
except
Do
herself.
you think, though, that AI will solve that particular problem? Because you can just feed your own words into an AI and then just be like, be me and write this scene in the way that I would write it. No?
But there's no creativity though, right? That I think isn't the issue with AI. It's pattern recognition, right? You feed it the things that you want it to kind of understand, and then it'll try and reproduce things in a similar manner. But it's never gonna be innovative because it doesn't think outside the box. It's just whatever you feed it is what it has. And so in a creative industry, obviously in like if you're just making policy documents or summarizing things or whatever, it's like, yeah, just throw it information, let it like filter it out. But if you're trying to be creative, I don't think AI can replace human creativity.
Whoa, big statement. In principle agree with that, but I don't know. There are some AIs out there for writing creative stuff, like short stories, scripts, theater stage plays. I don't know. I think they'll just get better and better. Maybe as a tool, right? Like obviously, I do think that they can't completely replace human authors, but in terms of this problem of not being able to train someone who can think like you do, I don't know. I feel like AI could step in and fill that gap there. I don't know.
I feel like I stand on the maybe because I am somewhat an artist, not really. I haven't drawn for a while, but it just feels like
let's call you an artist. You're an artist if you draw.
No, barely. I feel like AI should replace menial tasks, but not replace people's jobs. If that makes sense.
That's fair. And actually, yeah, Veni Conveni, it could be a good starting point for script writing. That's true. Yeah, like it may save a bit of time, but not replace completely. Yeah.
And the issue with AI in terms of, I can only speak from art. I'm not too sure about writing aspect, but in terms of art, the problem actually comes from stolen art. That's the whole issue with AI art, is that they are stealing whatever art is on the internet and then generating things from that. So it's not truly their work. If you go, okay, I'm using this AI and I've drawn 100 pieces of work and I put only this 100 pieces of work into this AI to have like a, asset created, then sure, that's probably okay. But when current AI is stealing from everywhere on the internet, it's unfair to artists who actually put the work in, that actually done the job, and they're just taking bits and pieces from it.
Yeah, no, totally. That is an issue. We have a software dev who agrees that AI was just for like the menial small stuff.
Now, I want to watch that whole conversation between the two artists again.
Now?
Just to see what they say.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just going to scroll back.
Okay.
It was so entertaining. I feel like I didn't catch half the things that were flying across the screen because I'm like processing
it felt
what they were
like
saying.
Such a long scene. It's a good like 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You can't live in a dumpster. Yep.
Yeah.
You become human again. It's so ironic though, because earlier, wasn't she saying that that artists who do weeklies, they're not human. Yeah. They can't be human. They're not and here she is being like, you need to become human again. It's just...
I'm trying to remember. There was a manga artist that unfortunately passed away due to overwork. Who was it?
I mean, I'm not surprised, but that's terrible.
Like, it's just so tiresome, and it takes so much energy to do weekly that it shouldn't be a job that's a weekly manga. Like, it's kind of like game development. So it's just like they put the standards so high, and there's so much, crunch time, I guess, in gaming developer words.
Mhm.
Like, you have to like put so much energy. You have to do overtime, you have to stay up late, you sleep 2 hours a day just to get this thing out. And it's just like, maybe we shouldn't have standards that high. Maybe we should be okay with waiting a bit longer without being like, no, we need this every week.
Yeah, but I mean, there's just the market's not going to die. Like,
Yeah.
you'll always have demand, and then so you'll always have supply. I do
Yeah.
have a question though. I'll see what you guys think. Do you think Abiko is on the spectrum? Because it was interesting how she really struggles to connect with people. Clearly struggles with communicating in a way that lets them understand her and what she wants and her vision. And also previously, Yoriko also was talking about how she wants to connect to people, she just doesn't really know how to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, do you think she's on the spectrum?
Yeah.
Kind of some signs there.
Yeah. I would say so. Like, more likely to be on the spectrum. And she also has the tendency to be very direct and blunt.
Yes.
Which is something that people on the spectrum tend to be, like, they tend to be more literal. It's like, no wishy-washy words, it's just direct bluntness, which people take offense to more, you know.
Yeah. So it's implied she's at least slightly. Yeah. Also, No Name is like a lot of mangaka die young, which that's a terrible statistic, but not surprised.
Yeah, and like she mentions the part about like, oh, the readers will forsake me in an instant, and unfortunately, that is such a unfortunate thing. In like, I don't know if you probably don't know. There's a manga series called Bakuman that is about drawing. So it's kind of similar to Shirobako, which is about anime production. There's a manga called Bakuman that's about the main characters trying to become manga artists and kind of goes through the process of, you know, meeting with editors, trying to create a story, trying to create characters, trying to be popular, and rankings, especially in Shonen Jump. Rankings is everything. If you're in the bottom 3, you are on the chopping block. If you don't get out of the bottom 3, you are cancelled. You get axed. And that's what we actually use the term axed. Like, a series will get axed if they're not popular enough. So every week you get ranked. And so every week is pressure to perform.
Yeah,
you can't be like, oh, let's
imagine.
have a breather chapter. Because, you know, we need a bit. No, if it's not entertaining enough, if it doesn't capture the reader's attention enough, chopping block you go.
Yep. I wrote notes this time.
You wrote notes?
But the problem is I can't read them.
Can you show it to us on the screen?
I mean, it's not... I don't know if you can see that. It's probably not in focus. But hey, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in that episode.
Also, it's mirrored. It's mirrored. Your webcam is mirrored,
well,
so no one can read it.
Can't believe you guys can't read backwards writing. It's a basic human life skill. Leonardo da Vinci could do it.
What, can you decipher your own words? What did you write?
I know, I said authors have limits. It's not just about the script. Yeah, I felt like that was a real home-hitting message, is that, yes, you start with the story and it starts with one person who has a brilliant idea and is able to visualize it themselves, but then once it gets out there into the world and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and you need to rope in more people to actually sustain that momentum and to get it out to more people, that's when sort of it becomes its own monster. And then you get this situation where if you can't handle bringing other people in, you die. Or, I mean, you just break down if you can't adapt to that sort of changed context. Yeah. So that was too real.
Yeah.
And they also talked a lot about like the dangers of success, which I thought was interesting. Sort of how that whole part where I think it was Yoriko who was talking about how once Abiko, made it big, because this is Abiko's first manga series, right? Was it the first one, and she's never had to deal with any sort of setback in the past, and so she's her head's kind of grown to the size of Jupiter, and no one says no to her, no one tells her things to her face that she actually really needs to hear, and so it's just this cycle of self-babble, and she's just working herself into self-destruction mode.
And it's so funny because Kana picks up on that in that conversation, be like, I've been through that. I suffered the consequences.
Yeah. So lucky that she had at least one person who was able to fight it out with her like that and get all those hard truths out and just stab her with reality. And that she also was willing to listen to, because it's obviously if it wasn't someone that she respected and had worked for and she looked up to, then it would have just been like wind, blowing past. So,
well, that's exactly how Kana went through her life, right? It was like she had no one that pulled her up to be like, hey, if you keep doing this, you're going to lose the respect of everyone. No one wants to work with you. She had to learn it the hard way. Whereas at least here, Akibo has someone to reel her in to be like, okay, you need to actually communicate properly.
Yep.
What did she say? Holding her work hostage, the quality of her work hostage, and running away from public
that line was like a full-on
like,
flying dagger. Yeah.
And just blaming everyone else for her problems.
Yeah, and it's just so hard because if she is on the spectrum, like that just makes it all the more harder. Like you have to, if your brain doesn't naturally work that way, you have to work even harder to sort of adjust how you speak to people and learn to speak their language as such. Yeah. So.
And you probably don't have the energy to even do that. It's like it's already a struggle, and you have the pressure. And I think she mentioned something. I'm kind of like scrolling through as well. She mentions like, oh, I've sold 50 million copies. That's a level I have to contend at. And it's just the weight of that pressure of being like, I have to sustain this, or I have to do better than what I'm already doing.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, oof.
Yeah. Oh God, their faces when they were yelling at each other were epic. Just all the big veins popping out.
Even the music was great this episode.
I feel like the backing music has been great for every episode. It fits the internal emotions that the character on screen is actually going through so well.
Because I remember when Oshinoko first was announced by the studio, I haven't seen anything from this studio, but now I feel like, yep, this is a studio I feel like I can trust. Like they're smashing it out of the park.
This one was a zinger, as the self-professed professional who mistakes plot turns at pander to readers as entertainment. I feel like I've read that criticism so many times in just any sort of medium, literature, adaptations, TV series.
I love the part where Yuriko just like yells at her being like, my manga's still more entertaining than yours.
Do you think Oshinoko is a particularly difficult manga series to have adapted to anime? Compared to other
I don't think so.
genres, or I don't
know. I wouldn't say so, because I would say most of it is dialogue driven. I feel like internal monologue is what makes adaptation hard from like manga or light novel to anime. Whereas I feel like dialogue driven tends to be okay. Because dialogue driven is like the script is there and the anime side is more the directing and cinematography side of things, animating things to make a visual representation of the dialogue. So it tends to flow more easily because dialogue flows easily. It's the monologues that's like, ugh, how do you make this not drag?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it's hard. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy. There's
No,
good out
no,
there.
by no means.
Adapting is
No.
yeah. But compared to certain series, like it's definitely
Okay, interesting. This
Yeah.
latchy thing. Before it was on, I was convinced no one would watch it because the intro has such a different tone and off-putting elements. Doing the movie length first ep was a really good call. Just good choices all around.
Oshinoko's interesting for season 1 is that when they first marketed it, it was like, this is an idol show. You know, if you like idols, come watch. Is
you
going
mean
to be
it
the
was
main character.
a bait and switch?
Yeah, it was literally it was a bait and switch. Like it was like you go in expecting something about idols, and then immediately you get hit with a line like, "This is a work of fiction."
Yep.
At the very beginning, and it's just like, okay, well, this is a little bit sinister from get-go, but okay, I'm willing to go along. And then immediately, first chapter, if you read the Oshinoko manga, first chapter, the doctor dies, and it was like, wait, what is this? I thought this was about idol. Suddenly, there's already one death. Yeah, it was amazing.
So it flipped the script. Nice.
Yeah. And so when the anime was out, it was like everyone was like, "Shut up! No one talk about this. No one spoiler for the anime watchers. We need to just let them experience this ride." And it was great because they made a movie length to be like, "All right, we're gonna get to the point where I dies." It's just like, damn.
Yep.
Yeah, the prologue goes on for like 10 chapters, so we were like slowly trudging along, and we're still thinking that, oh, I's still gonna be like the main focus, and then it was like, nope, nope, she's not.
Okay, that's impressive.
All the marketing, all the marketing was I. It was literally bait and switch.
Nice. So I'm assuming most people in chat are manga readers of Oshinoko. I might be the only one who's never read it.
I'm sure there are some that haven't read it yet, right?
Oh, I finally was able to make out this line. I mean, was there anything on this topic that you want to add, like about, this fight that the two manga artists had?
I'm still slowly scrolling through because I can't multitask.
All right. Well, I wrote down something No Name asked. It was like, when they went to the theatre play and it was about ping pong. They were like, "Oh yeah, how do you do a sports show as a play?" And I was like, I can totally imagine it. I personally, I would. So obviously, being ping pong, everything like the way they hit the tiny ball. Obviously, there's no ball. They just mimic the actions, and then every time they hit, it's just like a sound effect. It's like these epic sound effects. They'll have these horns blaring, and it's kind of just. Everything's just glorified ping pong. I don't know.
They have a screen at the back, so I'm assuming like because there's a screen at the back, they just have to be in the right position to like pretend to hit something, and then the screen will have the ball showing like it flying everywhere.
Yeah, I cannot. Tommy, then they would need actors who are really good at playing ping pong. I don't know how big of a pool of actors you'd have to choose from. Someone mentioned Suisei. Vini Convini. I knew Oshinoko because of Suisei, and then I started reading the manga in 2022. Did Suisei mention the manga, or was she comparing? Like, was she talking about how real it is? Maybe how too real it is, or.
No, I think it was a panel and they got asked what manga they liked.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
They got a huge boost. I bet a lot of the themes in Oshinoko, even though it's specifically related to acting and adaptations and all that, probably anyone in the entertainment industry, even in music or whatever, it's just that common struggle of how do you communicate the vision you have in your head to a team of people so that the end product fits with what you actually wanted in the beginning and doesn't turn into a mutated monster that actually reflects badly on you. I feel like that's just universal struggle in the creative industry. If you're in any way successful or big.
Latty says they could do something like Hamilton did with the bullet, have a character whose role is the ball and they move it.
Genius. Yep. There are ways.
OJ says she shilled the manga way before the anime was even announced. Yeah.
The true fan.
Still scrolling through because I can't talk and read at the same time.
I can't believe they got through that much stuff in 5 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes. They're all sweaty and tired by the end of it. Well, while you're doing that, I have deciphered more of my notes.
Oh yeah, talk about it.
Speaking of how Abiko's super blunt, that part where he said 90% of the world's creative works are trash. I was like, whoa, but also, I don't know, maybe not entirely incorrect. No, say whatever you will about her, she has standards, and I respect that. I respect that a lot because I respect it because I so appreciate when people aren't afraid to make some sort of critical judgment on creative works and not default to the, well, nothing's really better or worse. It just depends on personal preference because everything's subjective. I think because I have strong feelings about this in terms of music, and it's a spectrum, right? Like it's not like everything is subjective and there's no standards. But it's not like, everything is objective either. Like obviously there's some room for personal preference. It's sort of somewhere in the middle. But I do find the conversations that are most frustrating is like when people dismiss legitimate criticisms of creative works, whether that be music or a novel or a TV series. They just dismiss it and they're like, you just are butthurt or salty because it doesn't fit your personal preferences. And yeah, that's hard. It's difficult to have constructive conversations when people aren't willing to accept that there are such things as standards for creative works in particular. Yeah. So I thought that was yeah.
Yeah, I think the issue that people have when talking about criticisms is more that there's two scales. One is, do you enjoy this series or enjoy whatever this thing you're consuming? And then there's a objective, is this actually good? Because you can love trash. You can love watching The Bachelor or reality TV shows, which I personally think are trash. They have no purpose and it is purely for entertainment. Like you're watching for the train wreck. But anyway, but that is what people enjoy. And so I feel like there's 3 scales. One is, did the person consuming it enjoy it objectively as a creative work? But then I feel like there should be a 3rd scale is, did they achieve what they want to achieve? Because if the objective of the show is to be trash and everyone wants to watch the train wreck, then they achieved, right? If the success is that they achieve what they intended to do, even though the writing could be utter trash, right? So, like objectively, maybe it's not great, writing is not great, but success-wise, if they intended this to happen, then they did great.
Something like The Bachelor
as a target audience.
Right. Something like The Bachelor clearly is written because they know it's going to be trashy and they maximize trash levels because that's what they're good at. They've been very successful at it because I watched The Bachelor and I enjoyed it immensely. I haven't watched every season, but it's just one of those shows where you're eating dinner and you don't want to be burdened by the world's serious issues and you just want some good trash. to go with
And
your rice. So
so yeah, but then if you say that, people will get, if they really love the show, they will get offended when you say, well, this is trash. It's like, well, no, it's like, I enjoy it a lot, so therefore it's not trash. It's like, well, that's false equivalency. Like, you can't say.
I don't know. I feel like that's just semantics. Like, it's an Ouroboros. It eats its own tail. It was meant to be trash. Yeah. It was trash. It was successful in being trash, and therefore it's not trash. Like, that's the circle. And I'm like, great. That's all you.
No. But that's the extreme though. It's when it's in that middle ground of it's not. It's when it's not intended to be not great.
Yes.
But people still immensely enjoy it, so therefore they think it's good. But objectively, I know it's very hard to be objective because everyone has internal bias and subjective opinions on what should be good. But if we try to be as objective as possible, if there's plot holes, if there's character, everyone is a Mary Sue, it's like, okay, there are problems. But some people enjoy power fantasy. Like, a lot of people enjoy isekai power fantasy where the main character just utterly destroys everyone, and that's great. But objectively, it's like, well, it's not very creative or as interesting as it could be. The character could have more depth to it. The writing could be better, but someone could go, I really enjoyed it, therefore it's not objectively bad, even though another person might go, it could be better. So it's just so hard fighting against what is enjoyment and what is objective criticism.
Yeah. Nah, I mean, it's just a constant sharp edge that you have to navigate, which is fine. That's where all the interesting discussions are at. Like, trying to differentiate subjective from objective statements. And sometimes it's really hard too, which is fine.
But I do wonder when she said, going back to Akibo mentioning like 90% of the works are trash, is she referring to everything, like everything that anyone has created, or is it everything that people have submitted?
That's been adapted or created through the industry? Maybe, I don't actually know.
She didn't really say, so that's why I'm like...
Open to interpretation, maybe.
Yeah, because if she's referring to anything and everything that people have created, then yeah, of course 90% of it is trash because they're not written by people who are experts or people.
And that's how humans learn. Field. It's by making trash
just
stuff.
Get better.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that's what Yuriko mentioned about the batting average, right? There was one line she was like,
your batting average is 0.3 or something.
Yeah, but I thought she was saying that I need to go back and read whether that was her first one or maybe she had series that got rejected before.
That was interesting too. Sorry.
Oh, what was it?
No, I'm already jumping to the next thing, but we should stick on this one.
I'm still back.
Trash.
I'm still on the fight.
We need to talk about trash more.
We need to talk about trash more. I can't tell.
90% of the world's creators are third rate, was the line. Which does translate into 90% of all creative works is trash, right? Well, maybe depending on how much is created.
But it's true though, in terms of, I feel like it's true in terms of entertainment, right? It's like if you go on Twitch, if you look at Twitch stats, right, 90% of the people on Twitch will have like less than 10 viewers. I don't know what the actual stat is.
Oh,
but then it's like, I don't actually know this, but I don't know what the actual stat is, but I remember vaguely like there's a very, very large percentage, because you can imagine anyone can stream, right? I stream. I don't have that many viewers. I'm just like very low.
You stream for enjoyment, though.
I stream for enjoyment, but technically, but it's in the same category, right? I'm still a creator. So in that sense, it's like, well, anyone who creates is in that 90% where they don't create anything that big, and then it's only the top 10% that will get noticed by people, and then the top 1% are the ones that get big, and the 0.1% or even 0.001% that will become like the classics. So those numbers realistically in the entertainment world is not wrong because you don't remember 90% of the things that you'll see an advertisement and go, not interested, bye, right?
Yep.
You don't see it.
No Name actually found the name. It's Sturgeon's Law. 90% of everything is crap. Yep. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So she's not wrong. Just facts.
I feel like I need to look up Twitch stats to be like.
Oh, but OJ also has a good point though. It doesn't matter what she's referring to because she has not consumed all media. And no one ever, no human in history has ever consumed all media. So that is also a strong point. You can never really say that statement with 100%, objective accuracy.
But I wonder if I can't remember. I don't know if the anime mentioned it and I glossed over it. When they're talking about she wrote it in the way that, I mean, the subs wrote it in the way that if they were to create another 3, 2 of them will be dull. But I wonder if it's true in terms of maybe she has created 2 previous works that were rejected and this is her 3rd one.
Yep.
That is what made her success. And she's forgetting that other people had to submit multiple to get success. And she's thinking that, oh, I have this big success. Other people should be able to do it too. And if they don't, they're trash. And she's forgotten what it's like to be
not
rejected.
Be her.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Yuriko does point out also that Abiko is unusually talented. So there's that factor as well. Obviously, the talents that humans have are very unevenly distributed. So it would also make sense that the experience of success is also very unevenly distributed. And also, of course, luck plays in a huge role as well. So
yeah. Remember how you mentioned she could be on the spectrum? There was one part where Yuriko was like, oh, she's really shy and quiet and doesn't talk until you start talking about manga, and she talks a lot. That's one of the things that.
Oh yes.
Right. And it's just like struggling with social situations. But the moment it's like, oh, interest, and then the obsession with that singular interest also plays into, implies that she could be on the spectrum.
Right, the whole connecting to others through interest. Which is what people on the spectrum are more naturally inclined to do.
Yeah.
Whereas neurotypical people can just connect directly to the person. They don't have to necessarily share common interests. They can just be like, how's your day? What did you eat for lunch? What do you do? Like all that stuff.
Yep. That's what I struggle with as well. It's like, why do we have to? Can we just talk about something more interesting?
Yeah. So it's just different brains, different ways.
Yeah. And I guess that's, because I'm scrolling through that conversation and Yuriko's just like, you can do that much, can't you? And Akibo's just like, I can't. I can't. I can't get along with others the way you do. And that's such a neurodiverse thing to say. It's just like, it's so normal for you, but I struggle with this so immensely.
Yeah. OJ, maybe she's just a big fan of fairy tales and has inadvertently applied the rule of threes to everything. I do have one more thing. Rotating stage, life goal to get to a rotating stage, theatre stage production at one point. Maybe preferably one that doesn't like spray water in your face and blow wind into your ears, because I'm not a 4D person. Don't know why. I'm just like, everything else is fine. Just leave my other senses be. And
I mean, how many like, I mean, I think they call it 2.5D stages. How many are there in the world?
2.5D as in movement, like your seat moves.
Oh, I think they did they call it 2.5D or is this like a 3D? I
thought 4D. 4D.
4D. Wait.
Yeah. Yeah, 4D.
Kind of
right? Like all your other senses, like touch, sometimes smell.
Like the rotating theater, maybe? Like, how many
Yeah.
are there in the world? I guess is what I want to know. Like, is it only in Japan?
I don't know. But yeah, I'm with Laddie. Like, I'm like, nah, I'm good with Norby experience. No name. I did backstage work for a play with a huge turntable once. Oh, you've actually had experience working on one of those stages. That's actually really cool. Oh, I'd be so curious about your experience working on a play. I've never done any sort of theatre work. I've only ever played in an orchestra. Well, I've played in an orchestra for a musical, but not actually been involved. A play with a Japanese name. It was not a popular one. It was some weird, eccentric. No, it wasn't Death Note. Thank God. Death Note is fine. It's fine. Don't get the wrong idea. But no, it was some Nikaido. I don't know. Just some obscure play that our music director plucked out of obscurity and decided to make the whole school do it. But yeah, backstage work on a play sounds really interesting, and also would it not be very stressful? I don't know how much time you have to set up the next scene, but it always seems like you literally have just seconds to move everything. Seconds? That's crazy. So stressful. Yeah, so much harder working as a backstage person compared to playing in the orchestra, because I don't know, there are just parts where for the whole hour you're just sitting there doing nothing. And yeah, you actually it was nice when the orchestra was seated in a way that you could actually watch the play being staged, but most of the time you were seated such that you just kind of heard the audio, which was fine as well, but obviously a lot of the play is visual too, and yeah, that kind of sucked, but it's the nature of the work.
Yeah. Okay, Laddie says 2.5D is more anime to stage play thing. Okay. What is it called though? What is like theaters with like the whole the whole audience turn? I think there's like a name.
They call it the rotisserie, I believe. No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they'd have a special technical name for it. Tommy found an article on revolving auditoriums, but no venue examples. Maybe it's just like a mythical creature. It's people have heard of the legends.
No, I'm pretty sure when the manga came out, I looked into it and it exists in Japan at least.
It would be so bizarre if it was just Japan that had these. That's crazy.
I'm gonna have to find the Oshinoko chapter.
Oh, there are some examples in the article. Okay.
Oh, are there? Like
I'll look some up for next time and just rant about how awesome they are.
Yeah.
Stage around theatre. Okay. I only had one last note, and that was right at the beginning of the episode when you had like Ruby talking to the other famous people.
Oh yeah.
And how they're like, you can't really talk to people in your own industry about certain things because then they'll just think you're bragging. It's true. And also I just found it fascinating that just navigating relationships as a famous person is not easy as well. Like you just have to be just careful with what you say. Yeah.
I mean, talking about that, it reminds me of remember how we had the Callie watch along and there was her track about Off With Their Heads? Do you remember that song? The one where she was like basically
off with her head. Off with their heads.
Off with their heads. Because it was like people complaining that she's complaining. And be like, you have it so easy, you're with this company, you have all this fame, you don't even have to work hard for it. And it's just like, well, It's like people who have popularity or have fame or is like celebrity status. It's people who are not at that level or almost kind of can't, or even in the same industry but not at their level, is kind of like you shouldn't be complaining because you have all of this. It's like, but they have their struggles too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like maybe it's kind of like that where if you're not at the same, if you're in the same industry, you're not at the same level. If you talk about something or even if you complain about something, the other person will be like, you're just bragging, you're not appreciative of what you have, you know. Stop being so spoiled.
Don't be so
or
bougie.
whatever.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of misdirected hate, the source of it is obviously just it's tough watching a fellow creator rise to certain levels of success when you have stayed in exactly the same spot or you're still struggling. Yeah, maybe it's just such a human thing to be, it's jealous. I mean, it's envy at its core, really. And you always think that your own success is deserved, but other people's success is not, even though you've both gone through the same thing. And, you know, again, luck though, like if the other person gets lucky, then that feeling also increases, but you can't really blame the person who got successful. You can't blame them that they got lucky either. You know, it's just the way of the world. Yeah. Start creating, stop tweeting. I think I remember that line. Oh, I do also remember End of a Life. She was sad because her former rap mates, like, because she used to be part of the underground rap scene in Japan, and I remember that line about looking behind in the rearview mirror. And so she's gone off to have this hugely successful VTuber career or even music career. And she's just kind of like leaving them behind, even though she doesn't really want to. And she wants them to know that she doesn't want to. But yeah, that's sad. And success has its own costs.
Yeah, and the line mentions like she's leaving behind the heroes that she looked up to and feeling like she's the villain in this story.
Yeah. Which is why Yoriko is so great. You know, she totally could have fallen into that trap of just hating on someone who has now superseded her in terms of popular success. But instead she went to her smelly apartment and helped her do some background filling in, which speaks like so much of her character. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's she's set up so well. Like I feel like even though there was her own arc, she's such a great character to counter Akibo. Right? Like she's just like the perfect contrast.
Yeah, I mean they counter each other well. Because obviously Abiko's the full I want it my way. Oh, you know what we were meant to talk about? We can leave it till next time though. Avatar The Last Airbender.
Oh, I forgot about it. I know.
Okay.
Save it for next time.
We can save it for next time. It's not, I'm sure it'll be relevant at any stage of this series. That article that you found was an interesting read. Yeah, about why they quit. I didn't even know that they'd not only given up on the movie adaptation, but they'd also tried to work with a Netflix adaptation, and they walked away from that as well, which I did not know. From that one. Yeah. So
it was such a big thing if you were following like the Avatar Netflix news. Oh no, the writers left, is gonna be trash.
Yeah. That's right. So Avatar will always be relevant. You're right. So we will talk about that next time. But yeah, we'll just call it a night there then. Thank you everyone for coming again to this beer discussion / Oshinoko watch party. OJ, I hope for next time you find some on-screen drinks that meet your very high standards.
This episode's all about standards, right?
It is.
90% is trash.
That's right. 90% of drawn beers are trash, and we're just gonna wait for that one beer that'll blow our minds. Yeah.
RC needs to draw a beer next time so we can show what true beer
On
should be
live, like draw a beer live on stream.
Yeah, on stream. See which percentage you fall in. 90% or the 10%?
I can tell you, I draw a beer just as well as I play a French horn, so you can have that to look forward to.
Next minute, bring out a French horn and play it perfectly.
Yeah, play Beethoven and French horn. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night or day if you had to get up really early for this stream. Yes, see you next week for episode 4.